El Mencho is dead. The most wanted drug lord in Mexico was gunned down in a 5-hour firefight in the mountains of Jalisco on February 22, 2026. Mexican special forces tracked him to a luxury cabin in the pine-covered hills of Tapalpa where he had traveled to meet his lover for a romantic weekend getaway. The man who had evaded capture for over 3 decades was finally found not through satellites or wiretaps, but through the movements of the woman he loved. He was 59 years old. He died bleeding out in a military helicopter somewhere over the mountains he once ruled. The White House celebrated. The Mexican government declared victory. The DEA issued statements praising the operation. News anchors around the world announced the death of the most powerful drug lord on the planet. But here is the question nobody in those press conferences bothered to answer. What happens to his money? Because Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes did not just leave behind a cartel. He left behind a fortune so massive, so diversified, and so deeply hidden that law enforcement agencies may never recover more than a fraction of it. According to Mexican government estimates from 2017, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel held roughly $50 billion in total assets. $50 billion. That is more than the GDP of over 100 countries. That is more than the annual revenue of companies like Nike or Starbucks. And that estimate is nearly a decade old. Since 2017, the CJNG has only grown larger, more powerful, and more profitable. A former DEA agent who investigated El Mencho for years told Univision in 2019 that he believed the kingpin's personal fortune was somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion. But that was 7 years ago. In the years since, the CJNG expanded its share of Mexico's illegal drug market dramatically. The Sinaloa cartel was weakened by internal conflict following the arrests of El Chapo and El Mayo. Regional cartels were absorbed or destroyed. The CJNG filled every vacuum and seized every opportunity. By the time of his death, El Mencho was almost certainly Mexico's richest criminal. His personal wealth likely exceeded $1 billion and may have been significantly higher. But unlike a legitimate billionaire whose wealth is tracked by Forbes and stored in regulated financial institutions, El Mencho's fortune exists in a shadow world that is almost impossible to penetrate. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Press the bell icon for more videos. So where is the money? According to former U.S. agents and prosecutors who have spent careers investigating narcos and seizing their assets, El Mencho's wealth was structured like a sophisticated investment portfolio. It was not sitting in one vault or one bank account. It was diversified across multiple asset classes, multiple countries, and multiple layers of corporate structures designed to make it virtually untraceable. The first layer was cash, raw physical currency. Drug trafficking generates enormous amounts of cash, and the CJNG was no exception. El Mencho had cash stored in safe houses, warehouses, and hidden locations across Mexico. Some of it was buried underground. Some was hidden inside walls and furniture. Some was stored in commercial properties that appeared to be legitimate businesses. The amounts are staggering. When Mexican authorities raided properties connected to the CJNG, they routinely found millions of dollars in cash. But those seizures represented only a tiny fraction of the total. Most of El Mencho's cash reserves remain hidden and may never be found. The second layer was bank accounts. Despite the risks, El Mencho and his financial operators maintained accounts in banks across Mexico, the United States, and internationally. These accounts were not held in El Mencho's name. They were held in the names of shell companies, front businesses, and trusted associates who served as nominees. The money was deposited in amounts designed to avoid triggering suspicious activity reports. It was moved between accounts through a series of transactions that made it appear to be legitimate business revenue. Tracing these accounts requires cooperation between law enforcement agencies and financial institutions across multiple jurisdictions. It is painstaking, slow work that can take years. The third layer was real estate. El Mencho invested heavily in property. Luxury homes, commercial buildings, agricultural land, and development projects across Mexico and beyond. Some properties were held directly through front companies. Others were purchased through complex chains of corporate entities that obscured the true owner. Real estate is a favorite money laundering vehicle for drug traffickers because property values are subjective. Transactions can be structured to minimize scrutiny, and once purchased, the property generates legitimate rental income that further launders the original drug money. The fourth layer was legitimate businesses. Mencho owned or controlled businesses across multiple industries. Restaurants, hotels, construction, companies, import-export, firms, agricultural operations, and retail establishments. These businesses served dual purposes. They generated legitimate income that could be reported on tax returns, and they provided a mechanism for laundering drug proceeds by mixing illegal cash with legitimate revenue. Some of these businesses were profitable in their own right. Others operated at a loss, but served their primary purpose of cleaning dirty money. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Press the bell icon for more videos. The fifth layer was vehicles, aircraft, and luxury assets. Mencho owned fleets of luxury cars, armored vehicles, private aircraft, and other high-value assets. Some were used operationally for transportation and security. Others were pure status symbols. These assets were often registered to shell companies or nominees, making them difficult to trace back to Mencho directly. The sixth layer was investments. According to former DEA agents, Mencho's financial operators invested in stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, and other financial instruments. These investments were made through offshore accounts, corporate entities, and intermediaries that provided layers of separation between the money and its criminal origin. Cryptocurrency, in particular, has become an increasingly important tool for drug traffickers because it can be moved across borders instantly without the involvement of traditional financial institutions. The seventh, and perhaps most important layer, was the network itself. Much of Mencho's financial infrastructure was managed by a closely allied organization known as Los Queenies. Los Queenies was led by Mencho's in-laws, the Valencia family, and was described by U.S. authorities as the CJNG's financial arm. Los Queenies specialized in money laundering and international investment. They operated across Mexico, the United States, Central America, South America, Europe, and Asia. They set up companies, opened bank accounts, purchased properties, and moved money through a global network of financial channels that was designed to be virtually impenetrable. The U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned numerous individuals and entities connected to Los Queenies, but the network was so vast and so deeply embedded in legitimate financial systems that sanctions alone could not shut it down. Los Queenies operatives used real businesses with real employees generating real revenue. Untangling the legitimate from the illegitimate was like trying to separate salt from seawater. Now here is the critical point that most people do not understand about drug money. Once it enters the legitimate financial system, it becomes almost impossible to recover. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Press the bell icon for more videos. U.S. and Mexican law enforcement have statutory authority to seize assets that are proven to be the proceeds of drug trafficking. But proving that connection requires evidence. It requires tracing the money from the drug sale through every subsequent transaction to its current location. It requires demonstrating that the property or account or business was purchased with drug money, not legitimate income. It requires navigating the legal systems of multiple countries, each with their own rules about evidence, procedure, and asset forfeiture. And it requires doing all of this against opponents who have spent decades and billions of dollars building financial structures specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of tracing. David Thierry, a 25-year veteran of the DEA, put it simply. He said he wished it was as simple as finding the bad guy with the cool car and the spinning rims. But it is not. Mencho's wealth is so diversified, so spread out, so deeply hidden that recovering it will take years if it can be recovered at all. He has investments. He has hotels. He has networks with different forms of passive income, rental properties, import and export businesses dealing in legitimate goods from China and Europe. The money is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. There is also the question of what happens to the CJNG's ongoing business operations. Mencho is dead, but the cartel is not. The drug trafficking continues. The extortion continues. The fuel theft continues. The human smuggling continues. Every single revenue stream that Mencho built is still generating cash every single day. The cartel's business operations will pass into the hands of family members and close associates. Even if there is a power vacuum, even if there is internal conflict, the enterprises will continue operating. Thierry compared it to a retail corporation. He said it is like if the manager at Target fell ill. Target is not going to stop operating. They are used to it, and there is certainly demand. That comparison might sound simplistic, but it captures a fundamental truth about modern cartel economics. These organizations have grown beyond any single individual. They are systems with established supply chains, distribution networks, customer bases, and revenue streams. The system does not stop because one person is removed. It adapts and continues. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Press the bell icon for more videos. For drug kingpins, there is a cruel irony at the heart of their wealth. The richer you get, the less you get to enjoy it. Once you can afford the yachts and vacation homes and private jets, you are already on the radar of every law enforcement agency in the world. Every purchase is a potential clue. Every transaction is a potential thread that investigators can pull. Every property is a potential target for seizure. Mencho understood this better than most. He had been on the run since 2011 when Mexico's federal prosecutor first issued an arrest warrant for him. For 15 years, he lived as a fugitive. He could not openly enjoy the billions he had accumulated. He could not walk into a car dealership and buy a Lamborghini. He could not check into a five-star hotel under his own name. He could not fly on a private jet without risking detection. He lived in mountain hideouts, moved between safe houses, and communicated through handwritten letters. His wealth existed on paper and in hidden accounts, but he could not access it freely. He was simultaneously one of the richest men in Mexico and a fugitive living in constant fear of capture or death. That is the paradox of narco wealth. You build a fortune that most people cannot imagine, and then you spend the rest of your life unable to enjoy it. Your money is everywhere, but you are trapped. Your empire spans continents, but you cannot leave the mountains. Your bank accounts hold millions, but you cannot withdraw a dollar without risking exposure. And in the end, the money survives you. Mencho is dead, but his billion-dollar fortune lives on. It sits in bank accounts in Mexico City and Miami and Madrid and Hong Kong. It is invested in hotels and restaurants and construction companies that will continue operating long after their true owner is buried. It is hidden in cryptocurrency wallets whose passwords may never be recovered. It is buried in fields and hidden in walls and locations that only a handful of people know about. Some of that money will be found. Law enforcement agencies in the United States and Mexico will trace some accounts, seize some properties, and forfeit some assets. They will issue press releases and hold press conferences celebrating each recovery. But the total amount recovered will almost certainly represent a small fraction of Mencho's true wealth. The rest will remain hidden. Some of it will be inherited by family members who know where it is stored. Some will be claimed by CJNG associates who have access to accounts and properties. Some will simply be lost. Cash that rots in hidden compartments. Cryptocurrency in wallets whose keys die with their owner. Properties held through shell companies that no one can connect to the cartel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Press the bell icon for more videos. The billion-dollar fortune of Mencho is the ultimate testament to the failure of the war on drugs. Decades of law enforcement effort. Billions of dollars spent on investigations. Thousands of agents dedicated to tracking drug money. And at the end of it all, the most wanted drug lord in Mexico dies with a fortune that authorities will likely never fully recover. The money was made by poisoning millions of people with methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin. It was laundered through systems that were supposed to prevent exactly this kind of abuse. It was invested in economies that benefited from the cash even as they condemned its source. And now it will sit in the shadows, untouched, unreachable, a monument to the limits of law enforcement and the enduring power of the drug trade. Mencho is in the ground. His golden coffin is covered with earth. But his money is still working, still earning interest, still generating returns, still flowing through the veins of the global financial system. And nobody knows how to stop it. That is the real legacy of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. Not the violence, not the fear, not the golden coffin, the money, the billions that will never be found, the fortune that will outlast the man who built it and the governments that tried to take it away. Subscribe for more stories about the hidden forces that shape our world. Real stories told unfiltered, because the money trail always leads somewhere the headlines never go. See you soon.